All right, in this lesson, we're going to talk about elements, and we're going to talk about their importance to chemistry. An element to a chemist is like a letter to a writer. And when I say letter, I don't mean a letter, a handwritten letter in an envelope. I'm talking about the 26 letters of the alphabet. You have A to Z. Those letters can make any word that exists in the English language. And just like these 26 letters can make any word, so we can say apple, right? There's 5 letters that make up a word. The elements that exist on the periodic table, and so we've got a list, basically, of nature's letters. These are the 92 or so building blocks that make up everything in the world. Just like all the letters in the alphabet make up all the words, the 92 elements that exist here make up all the naturally occurring substances on the earth. You, me, your iPad, your hair, your phone, air, you name it, is made up of these 92 elements. So to understand them is to begin to understand life. And let's take a look and get to know some of the elements around us. All right, here you can see these are the 18 most abundant elements in the Earth's crust, oceans, and atmosphere. So basically what Earth is made up of. And some interesting ones. You can see that almost 50% of the atoms, the elements that make up Earth, is oxygen. So you wonder, why so much oxygen? Well, there's a lot of water on Earth, and water has oxygen as part of it. And this is also by mass. Oxygen is a very heavy element. Hydrogen, by contrast, is a very light element. You think H2O, that's water. There's twice as many hydrogens as there are oxygens. But this list is not the total number of atoms of these elements. This list is a mass percent. So hydrogen is very, very light when compared to oxygen. And that's one of the interesting things about the elements, is that they have different properties, like mass, like size. And so because they have these different properties, a lot of the things that we're going to study come into play. Let's take a look at another. So here's the list of the most abundant elements in the human body. And you can see this list. You probably recognize the first few elements on here. But as you go down the list, and you're not surprised that oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen are the 3 most abundant elements in the human body. But as you go down, you see some interesting ones. Chlorine. We go over here, and these are the trace elements, and they do exist in the human body. Arsenic, which some of you may have heard is a poison at the right dose, is actually essential in a small dose. And one of the interesting things about chemistry and understanding these elements is that everything is a poison at the right dose. Everything is a poison at the right dose. Arsenic. It doesn't take much arsenic to kill a human being. It'll stop your cells from synthesizing oxygen. Basically, you will suffocate from the cellular level. But water, which is hydrogen and oxygen, is also a poison at the right dose. If you drink too much water, you can die. This famously happened in Seattle. A few years ago, a woman was on the radio station. They had a contest called Wee for a Wee, and you had to drink as much water as you could without weeing, and the person that drank the most would win a wee. Well, she drank so much water that it basically diluted her blood and the fluids in her body to such an extent that she could no longer function. Her body system shut down and she died. So, again, dose, amount determines what a poison is. So there are no scary elements. All elements are equal to a chemist because any amount of anything could kill you. So this is kind of an introduction to elements. And I won't make you memorize the periodic table. Okay? But I do want you to recognize that knowing the symbol of some of the more common elements is going to come in handy as the year goes on. You have the alphabet memorized now, and that makes English much easier. Imagine if every time you wrote a sentence you had to look at the alphabet. So the elements that we're going to use the most, some of these are carbon. And carbon has this symbol C. So get used to seeing carbon. Hydrogen has the symbol H. Oxygen has the symbol O. And right now we could draw H2O. This is a pure substance. And a pure substance can either be an element or a compound. And this actually, because it has more than one element, is a compound. But now we see our alphabet, those elements, those 92 elements. We now understand something about this a little bit more. We now know it has two particles, we'll say atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. Here's some interesting ones that you should know. Gold, silver, iron, and sodium. And the reason they're interesting is because their symbol does not make sense intuitively. For example, gold is AU. Silver is AG. Oh, let's put lead in here too. Iron is Fe. Sodium is Na. And lead is Pb. Now, you might ask, well, these symbols for each of these elements, where do they come from? Well, they come from the Latin or Greek name that the element originally had. For example, lead has a symbol Pb, and it comes from a word that you may recognize. Whoops, that's a B. It comes from this word, plumum, or plumum. And this is a Greek word, and they used to make pipes out of lead. And so someone that worked with plumum, the pipes, became known as a plumber. So when you see your plumber, if you see your plumber, hopefully you don't have problems in your house with your water, you can talk to him about where the origin of his name came from. And the other elements here have similar interesting meanings.